Contrary to popular belief, drought is not just an unnaturally hot time of year. Droughts are natural phenomena that can damage crops and threaten water supplies. As global warming has increased, serious droughts have been reported more often. North Korea has announced that it is experiencing its worst drought in 37 years, and officials say the last 5 months have been the driest in the history of the Panama Canal. Recent studies suggest that human activity may have exacerbated such a drought for a century. If this is the case, it is a sobering scenario that would lead to an even longer drought that has affected the trajectory of human history for thousands of years. From the droughts of thousands of years ago to the French drought of 2022, we bring you the list of 10 worst droughts that changed the world history. Let's begin our video. Top 10 Worst Droughts in History that Changed the World. On number 10, Tropical Africa Drought. By extracting sediment cores from Lake Malawi, one of the largest and deepest lakes on Earth, scientists determined in 2007 that sub-Saharan Africa experienced a series of mega droughts from 135,000 to 90,000 years ago. Rainfall was so scarce, in fact, that the lake's water level dropped some 2,000 feet, and lush forests turned into arid scrubland. The return of wetter conditions, coinciding as they did with an expanded Nile corridor, may have then provided humans with an ideal window for leaving Africa and colonizing the world, scientists say. On number 9, Ancient Egypt Drought. Nile Delta sediments show that the amount of wetland pollen decreased about 4,200 years ago, and that the amount of charcoal, a sign of fire, increased, leading scientists to believe that a drought must have occurred. They furthermore speculate that this lack of rain contributed to the demise of Egypt's Old Kingdom, best known for constructing the massive pyramids of Giza. Other civilizations to decline around that time, possibly as a result of the same drought, include the Harappa of present-day northwest India and Pakistan, the Subir of present-day Syria, and the Minoan of Crete. On number 8, Mesoamerica Drought. During their so-called classic period from approximately 250 AD to the 9th century, the Maya built dozens of monumental stone cities, while at the same time making impressive strides in mathematics, agriculture, astronomy, writing, and art. Then it all fell apart, a collapse in which drought almost certainly played a role. Numerous recent studies illustrate that the Maya endured centuries of low rainfall, from roughly the 600s to the 1100s, and that the main episodes of city abandonment from 760 to 910 appeared to coincide with particularly dry years. Scientists contend that the drought's effects were then exacerbated by warfare, political instability, and land degradation. On number 7, China Drought. While China has weathered numerous severe droughts throughout its history, perhaps none was as consequential as the 1928 to 1930 drought, which some experts have called the most disastrous event in the 20th century in China. The drought led to a widespread famine, claiming the lives of anywhere between 3 million and 10 million people. Amid the chaos of World War II, one of China's worst droughts in decades hit Henan province, part of the country's traditional breadbasket region. Winds, hailstorms, and locusts compounded the situation, and in 1942 grain harvests in the portion of the province not occupied by Japan dropped to roughly a quarter of their normal output. To make matters worse, much of that food went to soldiers, forced to eat roots and bark. As many as 3 million Chinese died of starvation by the end of the following year, and millions more became refugees. More recently, in mid-2017, Chinese authorities said a large northern region had experienced the worst drought on record, citing climate change as the culprit for extreme weather patterns throughout parts of the country. On number 6, the Dust Bowl Drought. With the Great Depression already making life difficult, a drought struck the Great Plains in 1931, and essentially lasted for the rest of the decade. Combined with short-sighted agricultural practices, it induced huge clouds of dust that turned skies dark, lodged in residents' lungs, and precipitated a mass migration to greener pastures. The apex came in 1934, which NASA researchers recently called the worst drought year of the last millennium in North America. Not far behind was 1936, when, amid the dust storms, a devastating summer heat wave killed upwards of 5,000 Americans and 1,100 Canadians. On number 5, Northern Great Plains Drought. Following a 1950s dry spell, no widespread drought hit the United States until the late 1980s, when prime corn and soybean country in the northern Great Plains began suffering from low rainfall. Spreading both east and west, the drought was then blamed for the many heat waves and forest fires that broke out in the summer of 1988. In and around Yellowstone National Park, for example, a blaze torched about 1.2 million acres, closing the entire park for the first time. Researchers later estimated the cost of this 3-year drought at $39 billion, marking it the most expensive U.S. natural disaster up to that point. On number 4, Syria Drought. Experts increasingly believe that Syria's worst drought on record last decade may have sparked the country's civil war, an ongoing, multi-sided affair that has already claimed the lives of more than 200,000 people. During the drought, roughly 1.5 million Syrians from farming villages fled to cities as their livestock died and their fields turned to desert. Rather than sympathy, however, they were met with alleged indifference from the government of President Bashar al-Assad, which, among other things, cut their food and energy subsidies. With sectarian tensions adding to their discontent, a number of these newly unemployed farmers joined peaceful protests against Assad in 2011 that quickly boiled over into violent conflict. On number 3, Africa. A fourth season of failed rains is causing one of the worst droughts East Africa has seen in decades, and this village, which is home to 3,600 families, is one of the area's hardest hit. The land is dry, dusty, and barren. In the past 11 years alone, the Horn of Africa has endured 3 severe droughts, 2010 to 2011, 2016 to 2017, and 2020 to 2021. The 2010 to 2011 drought, combined with conflict and complex humanitarian access issues, caused famine in Somalia. The 2016 to 2017 drought brought millions of people in the region to the brink of famine, which was only prevented through rapid and timely humanitarian response. The increasing frequency of shocks in the region has meant that the vulnerable have little space to recover and bounce back, leading to an increase in the number of internally displaced people. Humanitarian partners are working around the clock to keep pace with this rapidly escalating crisis. The delivery of life-saving and life-sustaining assistance has scaled up significantly in recent months, in complement to pre-existing livelihoods, resilience to social protection, and systems-strengthening interventions. So far in 2022, about 6.5 million drought-affected people have been reached with humanitarian assistance across Somalia, almost 2.8 million, Ethiopia, 3.3 million, and Kenya, 367,000. With the latest long-lead seasonal forecasts, supported by a broad consensus from meteorological experts, indicating that there is now a concrete risk that the October to December 2022 rainy season could also fail, there is no time to waste. Immediate action is required to prevent the worst from transpiring in the months ahead. On number 2, California Drought. This 5-year drought, which is the most recent, has well-documented agricultural, for example extremely agricultural surface water allocations, physical, for example groundwater depletion-related subsidence, and environmental impacts, for example fish mortality. Surface and groundwater withdrawals were used to mitigate water supply impacts. Water transfers were a primary tool to move water to areas of need, such as permanent crops. On January 17, 2014, California State Governor Jerry Brown declared a drought state of emergency. On April 2, 2017, Governor Brown lifted the drought emergency, but declared that California must continue water conservation efforts. With the official conclusion of the most recent drought, which spanned water years 2012 through 2016, It is timely to compare it with other historic California droughts and also to consider some of the lingering impacts. On number 1, France. France from last week braced for a fourth heat wave this summer, as its worst drought on record left parched villages without safe drinking water, and farmers warned of a looming milk shortage in the winter. Prime Minister Elizabeth Borne's office has set up a crisis team to tackle a drought that has forced scores of villages to rely on water deliveries by truck, prompted state-run utility EDF to curb nuclear power output and stressed crops. National Weather Agency Meteo France said it was the worst drought since records began in 1958, and that the drought was expected to worsen until at least the middle of the month. On average, less than 1 centimeter of rain fell across France in July. The corn harvest is expected to be 18.5% lower this year compared with 2021, the Agriculture Ministry has said, just as Europeans contend with higher food prices as a result of lower than normal grain exports from Russia and Ukraine. Meanwhile, a shortage of fodder because of the drought meant there could be a shortage of milk in the months ahead, the National Federation of Farmers Unions said. Water restrictions are in place across almost all of mainland France to conserve water, including in many places hosepipe and irrigation bans. Thank you guys for watching this video.
We hope you liked this video. If you want to suggest us any topic, please comment below in comment box.
Don't forget to subscribe our channel and press the bell icon.
Take care of yourselves, friends and family members. Bye for now.
Adios amigos.